Estamos de vuelta con mucha acción durante la semana. Esto es Pase Ambidiestro, Ambidextrous Pass, Fútbol Honestamente, Soccer, Fútbol Honestly. Vamos para lo que estamos aquí, que es una Champions League. We are here for a Champions League that saw high scores, saw teams that came back, saw a lot of moments of problematic moments, you could say, in certain games. Games where those that visited or played home had a more than comfortable score on their favor. Big teams that get shocked by smaller clubs, you could say. Bigger clubs that get shocked by smaller clubs. And small clubs that outplay big clubs. But this Champions League gave what we expect from the Champions League. Problematic moments, high score, low scores, ties, surprises. But this Champions League gave what we usually expect. A Champions League that started. This is the Champions League playoff to the round of 16. This is a 2-leg game. The first game is, this is the first leg. Second leg will be coming up. And it will be coming up. Second leg will be coming up on February 24th to the 25th. That will be next week. From Tuesday to Wednesday. 4 games each day. 16 clubs are currently playing to see who goes on to the round of 16. But this is the playoffs to the round of 16, and this is the first leg of those playoffs. But a Champions League that started with Galatasaray against a Juventus, a Galatasaray that won 5-2 in Istanbul at their home after trailing 2-1 at halftime with 4 second half goals. Goals that stunned the Italian giants in Istanbul. Juventus faces a monumental task in Turin after a late red card to Juan Cabal. Juan Cabal compounded their defense collapse, and Galatasaray's have a 3-goal cushion. They just have to make sure to defend and score a few more goals. However, Juventus was forced to play without several key starters, including Blahovic and Jonathan David, which contribute to the disjointed performance in Turkey, of course, because these are 2 starters, 2 important players for Juventus. But Juventus sees themselves have to make this up some way, somehow. Juventus sees themselves trying to catch on. In a 5-2 score, they have to score 3. There's no advantage here. There's no home, no away advantage. This is a straight, flat, global score. So if Juventus scored 3 at home and it's 3-0 for Juventus, this goes 5-5. And it will go into overtime, and then it will go to penalties if nobody scores. But this is no home advantage. There's no more advantage at all in these games. This is just a flat global score. At the moment, Galatasaray is 5-2. So if Juventus scores 3 at home and they bring it up to 5-5 on the global score, this game will go to overtime. But moving on, we have a Monaco against a PSG. A PSG that won as visitors, and a Monaco that got themselves ahead first in this game. PSG edged out their domestic rivals in a 5-goal spectacle that saw Désiré shine with a crucial brace. Monaco's Florian Bolongo The American international scored a brace in 20 minutes. A brace that it was early on in the game, but the Parisians' depth eventually turned the tie into their favor, and PSG started losing. Then PSG comes back and turns this to a 3-2. Désiré came in for Dembele and gave a different push to the PSG team. Once Désiré comes in, the dynamic to this team changes. A whole different level of versatility was added to this team when Désiré comes in. But this sub happened in the first half because Dembele gets injured again. And nothing on Dembele. Dembele is a great player. We saw what he was able to do last season. That's why he won the Ballon d'Or. We saw what he was able to do. And he didn't have much of these injuries as obstacles last season. But if you look at Dembele needs to be studied. What do I mean by that? In the sense of, why is he so prone to so many injuries? In Barcelona, he was constantly injured. He comes to PSG. He started about 3 years there, 4 years. He has an on and off time. Last season, he had a great season. But then once this season starts, Dembele is just constantly getting injured. He's too prone. If you ask me, he is too prone to injuries, and he needs to be studied in a sense of, why is he so prone to injuries? He's a baller, but his inconsistency has shown through his career due to the injuries, that are always getting on his way. But just imagine if he was able to win Ballon d'Or last season. Just imagine if this player was able to stay healthy the whole time. What could he have been able to achieve? And Dembele, speedy recovery is hard when you try to do something so well, and obstacles like injuries get on your way. It's understandable. It does get you frustrated. You try to help your team, but in all respect, you need to be studied to see why you are so prone to muscle injuries. It is no problems with your knees or ankles, but it's a lot of muscle injuries. Often. 1 year of consistency got you a Ballon d'Or. Imagine if you could have 3, 4, 5 years of consistency without injuries getting in as obstacles in your career. But moving on, we have the game that had a lot of eyes on. A game that had a problematic situation. A game that had it had an atmosphere that was highly charged. This is, as we know, Benfica against Real Madrid. And Real Madrid won 1-0. Real Madrid ground out a professional away win, 1-0. They stayed together. They were organized. And the win comes thanks to a second half strike from Vinícius Júnior in a really high charged atmosphere again. Despite sustained pressure from Jose Mourinho's side, the 15 times UCL winners maintained their defense shape to take the lead home. The Benfica against Real Madrid match was marred by reports of missiles and objects being thrown at Vinícius Júnior from the stands, not only to Vinícius but to all the players that were on the corner every time they went to take a corner against Benfica, and which UEFA is expected to investigate. We know, everybody knows, everybody has to speak about it, the medias, every other, person who's in social media, everybody that watches football around knows what happened in this game. The game already had a charged, intense atmosphere. You have Vinícius, who scores a banger. Let's not take that away from him. He scored a banger in this game. He celebrates the way he celebrates. I don't see anything wrong in the celebration. Where do I see something wrong is when the people keep booing and he picks up his jersey and he goes like this. That is understandable. That's why he gets a yellow. They are taunting you. You are taunting them back. As a professional player, you should have done your dance. Done. Move on. People will behave a certain way sometimes. And when everybody acts a certain way, everybody else around will act that way. So, the only moment Vinícius goes wrong is when he taunts the Benfica fans by lifting the back of his jersey, technically saying, yeah, I'm Vini, I play for Real Madrid, this and that. That's why the referee gives a yellow. From here on, Benfica players get all riled up. The stadium gets more riled up. Everybody sees the sequence of actions that happen. It's sad. It's really, really sad. Players just start going back and forth. Players just start pushing. Players just start, players keep getting more heated and going back and forth. And this is something that has been part of football, sadly, for so many years. Whether you support the adversary or you support the home team, the taunting between players or between the players and the fans has always been a thing. But as a professional player, you got to know when to cut it out. You got to know when to cut it out as a professional player. We always hear that, the slogans of no racism and the sport brings people together. But these situations have always been part of the sport, and it's sad to say. It's really sad to say. The sport does bring people together. It does. However, in reality, that does not mean that people feel the same way all the time. The sport brings people together, but everybody has their way of acting. And sometimes people show their true colors. Vinny was being taunted by the fans. He taunted the fans back. That is just what it is. Take it as it is. It's not the best situation. But from there on, the heat rises. The stadium brings a whole different atmosphere. It was already charged. From that point on, the atmosphere just fumes, grows. The players start arguing, and here and there players start saying things. From the sequence of situations and how everything goes, digesting the game and the actions, and it was intense in many ways. Just looking at how Vinícius and Prestani were talking, yes, we see Benfica tries to say, Vinícius could never hear what he said because they're too far apart. There's a doubt in there, at least from my side. I do believe Vini was able to hear him. But looking at the whole sequence of events, Prestani had to say something harsh. For the simplicity of covering his mouth, that's just one. If you are so sure and you agree with the ideology of what you're saying, why do you have to cover your mouth? In an area where there's hundreds of cameras looking at you, and there's people who can definitely figure out what you said if you don't cover your mouth. There's people who know how to read lips. So if you believe in your ideology of what you're saying and you're sure in what you're saying, why do you have to cover your mouth? be a man enough. That's just that. From there on, Pastrami covers his mouth. As soon as Vinícius hears what he hears, he runs to the referee. For all of those that can see out there, seen the videos on social media, the game, Pastrami's hands go up and goes like this. For all of those that ever been in trouble because they said something to a wrong person, and then, or they say something to a person and that person runs to, you could say snitch, you could say tattletale, you could say run on someone that can protect them, you could tell that Pastrami did say something wrong. His body language speaks. From covering his mouth to Vinícius running to the referee, and his body language of throwing his hands up like, oh, that speaks for itself. Football shouldn't be going through this. And if this happens, UEFA, there should be better protocols. UEFA, there should be better protocols. The referee doesn't know racism sign, but there has to be better protocols. We know players usually cover their mouth with their hand to speak to each other. But in this situation, it's pretty straightforward. Pastrami says what he says. Vini runs to the referee right away. And as soon as Pastrami sees Vinícius running to the referee, he does that body language gesture of like, oh, he know he messed up. That's just that. You don't have to make it more than that. And it's sad. It's sad to see this. We see fans in the Benfica stadium doing gestures that they shouldn't be doing. Yes, we do live in 2026, but that doesn't mean people's mentality and ideology change, sadly. The game is supposed to bring us together, but people's true colors come out, and that is sad to say. But moving on in this same game, Mourinho at the same time is just a hypocrite. As a person, he's being a hypocrite. Not as a manager. As a person, he's being a hypocrite. Why? Vinícius can do the celebration he wants. He's not taunting. In no moment when he celebrates, he's not taunting the Benfica fans. But Mourinho did not like Vini's celebration. It is understandable. Mourinho has to protect and defend his fans, his players. But he cannot say what he said. Mourinho cannot say what he said. He's being a straight up hypocrite. Mourinho has taunted stadiums, coaches, players. But Vinícius cannot do it. It just doesn't make sense. And it's understandable, Mourinho, you have to protect your fans and you have to protect your players, your team. That's who you work for at the moment. So it's understandable. You got to protect the reputation of everybody and anybody that makes part of the club. But it's just not tolerable. Your comments, hypocrite comments. Very, very low. Check yourself before you speak at times. That's why we call this fútbol honestamente. Soccer football honestly. Because that's just what it is. A moment of hypocrisy. It's just what it is. But this game definitely will bring flames to the Santiago Bernabeu. And I do not doubt that Real Madrid fans will give Benfica a hard time. And personally, UEFA needs to do a better job. They need to move faster. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar organization that definitely has lawyers, secretaries, organizers in every single branch of that you can think. They need to do a better job move faster, and take care of the situations better. Actually, take care of the situations better. We've seen topics about UEFA, how it takes so long sometimes for certain cases to come up or be looked at. It cannot be. It cannot be. It's sad when your slogan says no racism, but you have it right there. And I don't believe Vinícius would be a player to lie. I don't believe. Because I have been following him since he came onto Real Madrid. I've been watching this player since he came to Real Madrid. And before speaking, some people have to check everything. And that's what I do. But this is sad. Shouldn't be part of football. But this game will definitely bring flames. This game will definitely bring flames into the Santiago Bernabeu. Benfica will feel what the Santiago Bernabeu is. And I do believe that the Real Madrid fans will bring something special to this game to make sure Real Madrid gives a fight to this Benfica. But moving on, after a problematic game, we have a Dortmund against a Atalanta. A Dortmund that wins 2-0 at home. Borussia Dortmund utilized their home advantage, Signal Iduna Park, to secure a clean sheet victory through goals from Guirassy and Bayer. Atlanta struggled to create clear-cut chances and will need a much aggressive approach in the return leg. Dortmund win at home, but now they have to go and make sure they defend that 2-0 lead at a away stadium in Italy. Dortmund is safe for now, but they will have to definitely protect that 2-0. Then we have a Karabakh against a Newcastle that wins by a high score, 6-1 as visitors. Anthony Gordon delivered a historic performance, scoring 4 first-half goals to effectively end the tie before the return leg at St. James Park. The Magpies dominated every facet of the game in Baku, breaking several club European scoring records. Comfortable score sheet for Newcastle, who just have to defend and not get scored, of course. And if they don't want to attack as much, they just have to make sure they defend. But Anthony Gordon's 4-goal haul against Karabakh broke Alan Shearer's long-standing record for the most goals by Newcastle player in a single European campaign. Newcastle find themselves in a very, very, very comfortable situation. They go play home, which is in St. James Park. They should be able to take this game into the second leg and just walk with ease and take care of it and be able to put this game in their pocket and go on to the round of 16th. Moving on, we have an Olympiacos against a Leverkusen that wins as visitors 2-0. Bayer Leverkusen took a significant step forward in the playoff for the round of 16 with 2 clinical goals from Patrick Schick in Greece. Leverkusen controlled the tempo for 90 minutes, leaving the hosts with a little hope for the second leg in Germany. A 2-0 score. Again, this is comfortable, but you cannot trust a 2-0 lead, even in the global score. And now they go back to Germany, where they will have to protect that lead. They will have to protect that lead at home. And Leverkusen just has to make sure to defend well and play well. Then moving on, we have a Club Brugge against a Atletico de Madrid. A game that ended 3-3. Once again, in a span of a week and a half or so, a week. Atletico has been surprised. Atletico has been at the top, Atletico has been at the bottom, and Atletico has been at the in the middle. This game ended 3-3, a back and forth thriller, so Atletico surrendered a 2-goal lead, and a late 89th minute equalizer from Brugge. Chistos Solis leveled the game. The tie remains perfectly balanced as they head back to Madrid for the decisive second leg. And Atletico have been in a spiral. They have been in a spiral type of moment. They beat Barcelona 4-0 in the Copa del Rey. They made some changes for La Liga against Rayo Vallecano, and they get shocked. They get surprised 3-0. And now they go visit Club Brugge and tie 3-3. Now they have everything to play at home. And they will have to definitely put their starters to make sure they get this win and they move on from the playoffs to going to the round of 16. But then we have another game that was very, very, very surprising. A Bodø Glimt against an Inter Milan. Bodø Glimt that wins at home 3-1 in a small stadium. A stadium that had to be cleaned up due to the huge amount of snow. A stadium that also has artificial grass. Let me just leave that there. The Norwegian side continue their giant killer reputation by overwhelming last year's finalists in a high-intensity passing and clinical second-half finishing. Inter managed an equalizer through Pio Esposito, but looked vulnerable heading back to San Siro. Bodø Glimt has now defeated Manchester City, Atletico de Madrid, and Inter Milan this 25-26 Champions League season, Champions League campaign, making them the most feared unseeded team in the bracket. Yes, they have beat those teams. They are the surprise of this Champions League campaign, or this Champions League tournament so far. 3 giants: Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, and City. Those are 3 giants. Those are 3 known clubs in Europe in general. And each of those 3 clubs are known in their domestic leagues. And they were able to shock them. They were able to get a win. 2-1, 3-1. Things happen like this. Things like this do happen in football. But when you do it once, twice, a third time, can it be a coincidence? To a degree. It could, to a degree. Or maybe it's just the home advantage. But about this game, one thing is there's artificial grass. And it's the only professional pitch, and if not, it's one of the very, very, very few professional pitches in Europe that has artificial grass. That is something that Chivo, Inter's manager, pointed out. He is not the best ideal ground, but he cannot blame the grass for the loss of his team. But it's the only, if not one of the very, very few pitches that has artificial grass in Europe. Most of the other stadiums have natural grass, which is so much more different. The ball spins different. The ball moves different. Even your body feels the difference. For those that have been able to play on both type of pitches. Personally, I haven't had the chance to, and grass overall is the best. That's why we see it across, no doubt. But when it comes to artificial grass, for some, it's a disadvantage. For others, it's an advantage. For Bodø Glimt, I would say it's an advantage. For Inter Milan, it's a disadvantage. as we see. So it was for Atletico. So it was for Manchester City. But the artificial grass, for those that have played in artificial grass, they will agree with me. The ball has friction. The ball spins different. Long balls, they usually bounce differently. In professional football, in the grass, in the actual natural grass fields, when there's a long ball and it's wet, because most of the time they water them, it doesn't have a skip. In artificial grass, when it's wet, the ball has a huge skip. The ball might literally bounce and skip. But in general, when the pitch is dry, the artificial grass pitch is dry, you have a different kind of spin when there's long balls. When the ball is passed, there is a friction that holds the ball back. And in long balls, depending on how the ball is spinning when being passed and it bounces, it has a different bounce due to the friction. And this is common sense. This is common sense. Grass to artificial grass, which is made of a plastic, there's a huge difference. Yes, you could blame the loss on the artificial grass, but at the end of the day, this is professional football. These are professional players. Not every nation around the world is lucky enough to always play in a grass field, a natural grass field. But in this sense, I understand where she was coming from. Maybe that could be the reason. Or maybe Inter Milan just froze. Couldn't play in the pitch. Couldn't hold themselves to the cold weather. But these things happen. Now Milan has to go back to San Siro and make sure they score 2 or more goals to level the global score. This is all for the first leg of this playoffs to the round of 16 in this Champions League. This is all for today. Esto es Pase Ambidiestro. Ambidextrous pass, fútbol honestamente, soccer, football, honestly. Thank you all for being with me. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.